Welcome back to Forgotten Hollywood. Normally, I don't like horror. When it comes to scary movies, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken is more my speed. On the other hand, I do love reading. I've never seen a movie based on a book that had time to include all the details provided by the author, that was able to fully tell the story as it was written. Even the most faithful adaptations leave things on the cutting room floor. So when I found out that they were making a movie about a single chapter, I was thrilled. Finally, the opportunity to provide all the details and plot points the author intended, and then I saw it. I'd like to say it came close, but it really didn't. The book provided a clear outline, still allowing for creativity, and they couldn't even stick to it. There's really no way to talk about this without any spoilers, so I'll give my overall take for those who don't want details. I was bored. After a certain point, there were no surprises left, and I was just waiting for the last hour or so to drag along so I could get to the credits. I really wanted to like it, but I just didn't. If you stick around, I will give you my top 3 reasons why. Number 3 are the inserted characters. The book is clear about who was on the Demeter. How many people were in the crew, who the captain was, the log, the sequence of events on the ship. Very clear. But the movie changes this for ideological reasons. They inserted a young woman named Anna, played by Aisling Vakowski. I probably butchered that name. I apologize to anyone who speaks Italian. She was smuggled aboard by Dracula to serve as his food during the voyage, and he only starts killing the crew after she was taken from him when they found her and rescued her. There are so many issues with this. First off, Dracula had no need to bring food, as the crew was already there and would serve his needs just as they did in the book. You don't bring a sandwich to a buffet. He also wouldn't have wanted to run the risk of her being seen or heard on his way to London. In addition to this, they had this woman go from basically death's door to wielding the biggest gun on the ship in a few days. The other problem is that if he could get to the crew, he could get to her. She was in a sick bed, basically helpless for a while, and instead he decides to go after the able-bodied sailors. The other inserted character is Clemens, played by Corey Hawkins. It's not often that I see a male Mary Sue, but he is a prime example. He's an educated doctor who just happened to grow up on a ship and know everything about seamanship because his father was a low-level sailor? How and why that means that the child would have been on the ship is not explained. Had his father been the captain, first mate, ship's owner, he might have had an argument. However, that would also undermine the image he was trying to portray of a man rejected by society. There's even a speech he gives near the climax, mind you, about the hardships he faced, and all I could think was, we interrupt your movie for a PSA on racial equality. And now back to the bloodshed. It's an odd choice for a horror movie, but this is 2023. My number 2 issue is the historical aspect. I'm somewhat of a nerd when it comes to history, so these sorts of errors are ones I really notice. Again, it was the 2 original characters, Anna and Clemens, that highlight these issues. Anna claims to have been something of a human sacrifice made by her village to Dracula for him to do with her as he would. This is a problem for 2 reasons. The first is that in the book there are no villages that close to Dracula's castle, and those that are closest don't have anything to do with the Count. They actively avoid him, they tell other people to avoid him, they try to talk Jonathan Harker out of going there. You get the point. But even if we ignore that detail, this was the late 19th century in Transylvania, not ancient Babylon. The country was predominantly Orthodox, and those who weren't Orthodox were most likely Catholic. These are not religions that practice human sacrifice and would be more likely to burn down the castle or move their entire community before being willing to give a young girl to a monster. Clemens claimed to be the first black man to graduate from Cambridge. He talks about how hard he had to work to do it, and that basically nobody believed in him. Well, I don't doubt he would have had to work hard for a Cambridge education. The first black man to graduate from there was George Bridgetower, who received a music degree in 1811, 86 years before Clemens boarded the Demeter. On that note, less than half an hour on Google allowed me to find the stories of James Durham, the first black man to practice medicine in the US just after the American Revolution, who was making $3,000 annually in 1789. The math there, that's almost 100 years before the Demeter set sail. There was also James McHugh Smith, the first black man to earn a formal medical degree in Glasgow in 1837. Also, for the record, Cambridge was a central hub for the abolitionist movement and included such alumni as William Wilberforce, so the idea that nobody believed in him there was far-fetched at best. Credit where credit is due. Do not erase these great men and their legacy. Number one is what could have been, starting with the appearance of Dracula. When it comes to horror, you can't get more iconic than Dracula. Bela Lugosi established the classic look in 1931, and other than a deviation by Gary Oldman in 1992, basically everyone agrees what the vampire looks like, from Christopher Lee to Nicolas Cage. Do we get that here? No. We get Man-Bat. Even in his human form, he doesn't look human. The book describes him as tall, thin man who was not part of the crew, strolling along the deck that seemed to appear and disappear, which would have been great had they done it. As is, it sort of loses the effect when the monster who disguises himself as a man looks less human than Gollum. There's also a rather excessive amount of blood and gore, which is disappointing as the book records the deaths as men vanishing without a trace. How great would this movie have been if they had done it more of a ghost story, with a mysterious figure appearing and disappearing as members of the crew vanish one by one. The surviving members grow more and more paranoid, pointing the finger to each other as fog rolls in and keeps their ship and terrified crew in place for the final murders. The captain, as the last survivor, finally realizes that what they're facing isn't man or a ghost, it's a monster, a demon. With only his faith to protect him, he makes his last stand at the helm. Now that's how I would have done it, but no one asked me. So that's my take on the last voyage of the Demeter. So much potential, such an easy outline to flesh out, and yet they decided to throw it away for the message. It's so disappointing that even a horror movie about a monster is not safe from being twisted into a platform for modern audiences. I walked out of the theater with a strong desire to revisit Bela Lugosi's version. It's not perfect, but at least it's Dracula as Bram Stoker wrote it. Thanks for watching. What's your favorite version of the classic vampire? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, and I will catch up with you next time.